What's up, guys, and welcome back to Book of Entertainment. So, today, on 31 July 2025, the Constitutional Court has made a ruling in regards, to the issue of Nkosana Makate versus Vodacom on the Please Call Me matter. So, this is what is happening in simple English. So, this was reported by Linda Mnisi. And in simple English, this is what is occurring at the Constitutional Court. A Vodacom has won its appeal at the Constitutional Court. So the Constitutional Court has overturned a decision that was previously made by the Supreme Court of Appeal in the Please Call Me case. So this is a big legal win for Vodacom. It's a massive win for Vodacom. But however, the case is far from over. It's now going back to the Supreme Court of Appeal. The Constitutional Court in itself, they didn't make a final ruling on the actual dispute. What they simply did was to send the case back to the Supreme Court of Appeal, but this time around, the Constitutional Court has said that this case must be heard by a new set of judges, a differently constituted panel from the first initial one. But the question is, why a different panel this time around? The Constitutional Court themselves, they found issues with how the previous Constitutional Court appeal panel handled the matter, either in like procedure, reasoning, or fairness. So they now want a fresh group of judges to look at it again without being influenced by the prior decision. So with this ruling, I'm sure something is definitely going around through your mind, like at what point, should Makate count his losses and take the offer from Vodacom, and just walk home, because this case, it's now costing him money, by continuously hiring these lawyers each and every time, especially those lawyers. They are very expensive. They'll be charging a lot of money. So right now it's something like 20 years, since this Please Call Me issue started. And I don't think there is anyone out there, who would want to be given billions and billions of rands at the age of 80. I mean, what's the point of giving anyone all that money at 80? How are you going to be enjoying that money? I'm sure Nkosana wants to be given that money now so that he can enjoy it now, then invest it in the future, for his kids, etc., etc. You don't want to be given that money, then just simply pass it on to your kids. So that's another side. But on the other hand, walking away from the struggle that Nkosana actually started, it's very hard, because what if it's like you're walking away from a major win, because if he continues fighting, he may end up winning in the near future. So it's a tough situation for Nkosana at the present moment. So one thing more important is that Nkosana Makate filed this appeal to the Supreme Court in early around 2022, and the Supreme Court of Appeal delivered its ruling in February 2024. So it took roughly 2 years from filing to judgment at the Supreme Court of Appeal. So it had about 2 years. And now what it means is that with this new set of judges, we can expect the matter to also take around 2 years, maybe 3 years. So there is no need for Nkosana to be rushing anyway. Now on to the big one. How much is Nkosana Makate being offered by Vodacom anyway? So Nkosana is being offered 47 million rands, based on Vodacom CEO over what he believes is fair compensation. So Vodacom is offering 47 million rands. And Nkosana Makate himself, he is demanding between 10 billion rands and 20 billion rands, arguing that the Please Call Me service generated massive revenue over the years, and that he deserves a fair share of that. Now, going to the Supreme Court of Appeal based on the 2024 ruling, they offered him something like between 5 to 7.5% of the total revenue, and this estimated to a payout of over 20 billion rands. So, based off of the initial ruling of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Nkosana Makate was winning huge, winning big. But unfortunately now, it's not like going back to zero and starting all over again, but it definitely feels like that, that it's like kind of like starting all over again. So if Makate is going to give in and just be like, okay, give me that 47 million rands from Vodacom, the South Africa Revenue Service would be looking at that, and watching and be like, okay, we're taxing that figure, and based off of some taxed figure, this is most likely to be taxed under the personal income tax, and Makate would be taxed at 45%, of that figure, and his total take home would be around 25 million rands. So it's kind of low, it's kind of low. I think like Vodacom have to push the figure up, for it to try and make it a little bit appealing for Nkosana to take a bite onto it, because at the present moment that offer is just way too low. So no wonder Nkosana is kind of like stubborn, at the moment, because he feels like Vodacom is kind of like being arrogant, and trying to just do away with him with this low figure. And it definitely feels like that, because that 47 million rands is just way too low. So one thing, that you wouldn't want if you're Nkosana Makate is to walk away with nothing, completely nothing, zero. I think you definitely be shattered if it does okay like that. But obviously we hope that it doesn't get to that, because at the moment a new judge, might come up with a completely different judgment and see things in a completely different way. So looking at it, Vodacom has funds to drag this case for the next 100 years. They definitely have that financial muscle. So maybe looking at it, Vodacom can up the figure, and make it more appealing. How about 1 billion rands? They put 1 billion rand on the table, and they go as far as to say, okay, we're going to handle all your lawyer fees, that you've been paying throughout. We're going to be like we're going to pay that tax count, and you just take this figure. I think maybe that way it can be much better. But anyway, Nkosana is looking at 20 billion rands plus, and he is not backing away from that. So it's going to be something else going into the future. I'll catch you guys on the next one.